Hello, today we're going to talk about anatomical regions. So we're continuing with our learning of the language of anatomy. So we're going to learn some more terms. This information will be used not only in your lab exam, but also your lecture exam. So you need to understand the terms so that you can answer the questions. So again, we'll do some practice. I'm going to do another video that's kind of a practice using terms, but today I just want to introduce you to those terms. The first thing we talk about, remember, we do anatomical position. So we have the body facing forward, upright, arms slightly out, palms forward, feet slightly apart. And then we want to divide the body into regions or parts. And the first division, for the first major division, we have the axial and the appendicular. So the axial is your head, your neck, and your trunk. Basically, think about a pivot. So this is the axis of your body. The appendicular, or appendages, are the things that hang off of the trunk. So your limbs, your arms, and your legs are the appendicular parts of your body. When we look at these in anatomical position, we can divide the body into many regions. And so I have these in bold print and then also in smaller print. And these regions, you need to be able to recognize all of these and know where they are. So on a lab test, I may ask you to name this region, and so you'll have a picture and I'll have an arrow and say name this region. But on an exam, on the lecture exam, I may say the heart is found in which region, or the hand is part of which region, or what's the other word for your forearm? What region name do you use? So you have to know these terms for both of the exams. So you have major regions. You have like the cephalic region, and I'm not going to go through all of these because you guys obviously can read and it's in your textbook. But cephalic is the whole head. Well, within that head, you can divide it into smaller and smaller regions. The frontal region, the forehead, the orbital region is the region around your eye, your nose is the nasal region, the mouth is the oral region, your chin is known as the mental region. Okay? So you have large regions and then small regions. So this is the ventral side of your body. It can be divided into different regions. You have your thoracic region, which is essentially your chest. Okay? It can be divided into smaller regions. You have your abdominal region, your pelvic region, your upper limb. When you think about your arm, your upper limb has the acromial region, which is the top of your shoulder. The brachial region, that's the real name for arm. Antecubital, which is the front of the elbow. Antebrachial, which is your forearm. Okay, so again, you can look through these region names, but you'll need to know each and every one of these region names for both your lab and your lecture test. Now, I want you to notice some of these region names change if you're on the back side of a person. So let's look at the front of the knee is patellar. This part of your arm, your elbow, the inside of your elbow is called your antecubital region. Let's turn the person around. You'll see that the back of the knee is popliteal. The back of the elbow is olecramal. Okay? So you want to make sure that you're paying attention not only to these terms, but do they change from the front and to the back? All right? Does that make sense? So again, you're responsible for going through the body, understanding all these large regions and all the smaller regions that make a part of those regions. One that I'd like to make sure that you notice, cervical. Cervical means neck. And so that one a lot of times is missed because especially women, they've heard of the cervix before and they think reproductive parts. Your cervix is the neck of the uterus. So cervical means neck. So your cervical region is your neck. Okay? All right, so not only do we have these regions for our entire body, we have some specific regions that apply to our abdomen. So we have what's called, so anything below, there's a muscle here called your diaphragm. It's your big breathing muscle. And so anything above the diaphragm is your thoracic region, and anything below the diaphragm is your abdominal pelvic region. And so you want to be able to divide the abdominal pelvic region into smaller regions. And you need to understand and imagine which organs can be found in these regions. And so these are your 9 regions. The one around your belly button is called your umbilical. On either side is your right and left lumbar, kind of low back. Right and left hypochondriac. Epigastric is right above your umbilical. Epigastric upon the stomach. You have hypogastric, which means below the stomach, or it's also known as the pubic region. Then your left and right iliac or inguinal regions. So you need to be able to memorize what organs would be found in these regions. So why is this important? If someone comes in and they say, oh, I've got pain, I'm going to draw my arrow right here, I've got pain in my right iliac region, they probably won't say that, but they'll point to it. And you say, okay, you've got pain in your right iliac region. What could be there? Well, you think about it and go, oh, that's where part of your large intestine is, where your appendix is, and possibly it's an appendix problem. Maybe someone comes in and they're like, they have pain right here. You think, well, what's in the right hypochondriac region? Let's think about it. Our gallbladder's there. So being able to identify pain on the outside of the body in these regions helps you know what possibly is going on the inside. And if you get an order from a doctor that says, hey, I need to have a scan, a sagittal scan or a transverse scan or a frontal scan or an x-ray of the umbilical region, you know where they're talking about. So it's just a specific breakdown of the parts of the abdomen. Now, instead of using the 9 regions, we can also use what are called the 4 quadrants. And this is where you essentially draw a line, make a plus through the belly button, umbilical region, and give, basically divide it into 4 parts. Your right upper quadrant, your left upper quadrant, right lower and left lower quadrant, which we use these RUQ, RLQ designations, and this is, you'll see this on the exam a lot. So again, if someone came in and they had pain in this area in the right upper quadrant, you would think gallbladder. If they had pain in this region, you would think right lower quadrant, possibly an appendix. If it was a female, you might also think, ooh, ovaries are in there. So maybe it's ovary pain, maybe an ovarian cyst. So you want to be able to think about what's going on in these regions, what organs are found in these different regions and quadrants. Now, think about how you would use these regions and quadrants. Sometimes a quadrant is better to use than a region. So for example, if you want to talk about the bladder, would you want to use a quadrant or a region? Remember, if you think about the quadrants, the bladder was right here. So it's not really in either quadrant, but it is in the pubic or hypogastric region. So in some cases, it's better to use a region or than the quadrant, so you need to know both. You also need to realize that the regions and quadrants are only talking about the abdominal pelvic cavity, everything below the diaphragm. So if you asked which quadrant is the heart in, it's not, because it's in the thoracic or chest. It's not in a region either, because it's in the thoracic cavity, thoracic region, and not in the belly. Okay? So your regions and your quadrants. So again, take some time, look at your pictures, learn all those regions. I tell my students, just practice. Go, okay, nasal, frontal, mental, cervical, acromial, thoracic. Just start pointing to yourself and naming those regions. Thank you.